George Santos news?
We're still doing that as a country.
We're still doing it as a country, and I think the
what
latest.
is he still up to? What's this guy doing?
I think it's the best thing that he's ever done, and I've been a long time fan. You know, like I've been going.
That's the right.
Yeah, I've been going into it for George Santos, like Kendall here goes in for Drake. You know?
Yeah. Basically,
Oh my
very a lot of similarities.
George is my queen. So the latest thing that he's done is he has now decided to reprise his role as his Brazilian cross-dressing persona in order to do cameos for about $350 a pop. So you can get, and he has like the name and everything.
No, that can't be real.
It's totally real.
What's the federal minimum wage in this country?
The federal minimum wage, I
like
believe, is still $7.50. Yeah.
Like something like that.
I think only like 10% of less than 10% of workers are still getting that, but that's 10% too many. Yeah, that's
of course.
That's 27 million people.
That's the rub right there. That's any percentage too many of how much.
Yeah.
So as federal minimum wage, it would take you 48 working hours before taxes to get a $350 cross-dress cameo from George Santos.
Yeah, and what I'm saying in this situation is, what a bargain.
I'm like, that's a fucking steal.
Yeah. Like, if I could get a personalized cameo of George Santos for like, what do they say for a wedding ring? It's usually 3 months salary, you know. I would do like 6 or 9 for that for George Santos.
Okay. I got a deal for cameo. I can get my first one for
somebody's
$250.
Freezing up. Oh, you would do it for $250 and dress up? Yeah, but you're not George Santos.
No, there's a thing. There's a thing here saying I can do the first one. I get $250 is only $250.
Oh, you got a discount code.
Oh yeah, I looked it up on Cameo because I didn't believe you
individually. That's not a normal thing.
Dude,
I just didn't believe you that it was real. And it says I can get my first one for $250. Craig, when's your birthday, man?
All right, so you're
back in 2000. Back in 2000,
gift.
No. You'll never get me the perfect gift because back in 2001, I was given the perfect gift. My birthday is September 12th, so a day early. I got an early birthday present.
Wow. Okay, I do. So
yeah, I'll never top that.
All right, so
unless you can give me a cameo of the Twin Towers,
like a POV. POV, you're about to get jihaded all over. Anyway, so okay, I know that you guys are supposed to be using your Patreon money to improve the podcast, and I know that we know that all just goes to George Santos. That's not the point. Allegedly, right? Let's say we siphon some of that money, all right, and we build up enough to buy a George Santos cameo.
Yeah.
And get him to shout out the pod.
Oh my God.
What I'm saying is, like, you initially like said it as a laugh, you know, like you're using that money on George Santos cameos. Like immediately the gears were going in my head. Like if you're offended, if you're offended by your podcast subscription money going towards a George Santos cameo, you're listening to the wrong pod.
You're not the target audience, my guy.
Yeah, you should be thoroughly excited by that.
Yeah, take that shit to Call Her Daddy or whatever.
What the fuck is that? Oh yeah, that's the other podcast. One of those famous
are you referring to it as the other podcast?
There's only 2. There's this one and Call Her Daddy. Yeah. Welcome to another episode of From Right to Red. I am Craig.
I am Paul.
And we are joined again today by our wonderful guest, Kendal.
Yo.
Kendal, welcome back to the pod. Friend of the pod. We've got our first friend of the pod.
Thanks, guys. You guys didn't know, outside of the George Soros funding, I am actually the big parent company that runs this whole thing.
Yes.
I am the invisible hand up Craig and Paul's asses, generally.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Kendal Millette is a pseudonym, of course, to protect his identity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Please don't Google
that. So we wanted to talk about some of the things that we may have missed, kind of slipped through the cracks this past week. And the first one was actually just came out today that I wanted to touch on was apparently presidential candidate RFK Jr. has come out and said that he didn't come out and say it. Somebody found this in some divorce documents of his, that he claims to have had a worm in his brain that ate a portion of his brain and then died.
That really adds up, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's all coming together now.
I mean, we knew this was coming out at some point, that he had the brain worm.
So I thank you for doing more looking into this than I did. So just so I'm clear here, the worm found its way into his brain, ate some of it, and then died.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that is because brain matter is toxic to worms, or is it specifically his brain that
I think it's just his. Yeah. It's his, because usually those things stay for years until you have a medical professional take care of it.
That's what I thought. They usually
there was no sustenance.
Maybe he was eating so much of it that he died of heart failure or something like that.
Yeah, and there was still so much brain left. This is how Trump would spin this issue.
It was too much brain. Too much brain. Couldn't even handle.
I think if you're RFK, this is a win for you, because now people can't say you don't have one. That's put to bed now.
Yeah,
you have a brain.
You've got
the quality of it is,
or at least most of a brain,
right? Or whatever's left.
Yeah. At some point in your life, you had a brain, or a fully formed brain that is now missing a worm chunk.
Plus, now he can spin that and be like, "See, they killed JFK. They killed another Kennedy. They tried with me, and they didn't even succeed. My brain killed that worm."
They're putting worm. They got the worm brain gun. Yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't do it with the COVID vaccine, so they did it with the brain worm vaccine.
Yeah.
Instead.
Yeah. they fed him the brain worms while he slept. No, my first take was okay, he's just making this up. This never happened, and it was something for the divorce. That was my first take, is that somehow this got him $75,000 more after the settlement. And so he was willing to admit publicly that a worm ate part of his brain for $75,000. That was the first take that I had. And the second is if he actually does have that brain worm and that happened, right? Do you think that that brain worm is actually blackmailing him? I think that the brain worm saw. This is complete speculation. I want to start just by saying this.
Clearly.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. This is I have no material evidence. So it's completely riffing off the hip here, but I believe wholeheartedly in my entire soul that worm saw him killing an underage prostitute in 2008. All right. And now has been blackmailing him through his brain into saying all the stupid shit that he says now, the anti-vaccine and the pro-Israel and all that shit. Because RFK Jr. killed an underage prostitute in 2008.
I like the double emphasis so that when it gets clipped later,
but
there's no mistaking that you said that.
All just allegedly.
Okay, so I am alleging based on nothing.
So allegedly, especially based off things I've heard from Q directly. All right. Q informed me that he actually gained possession of this brain worm from eating the corpse of this underage prostitute. That's how the brainworm. Like
I
it
heard
was
that
the
too.
prostitute's brainworm, and then it came into contact with RFK allegedly.
Many people are saying this.
At least two.
At least 3 people are now saying this.
I keep hearing it every time I open my earballs. I hear people saying.
Every time I'm able to get away from the 5G signal jammers and the truth can come in.
Yeah. Then suddenly I'm just overwhelmed by the thought of the fact. I can't say
Allegedly.
the alleged fact that RFK Jr. killed an underage prostitute in 2008 and then cannibalized her corpse. That's all, I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there.
Which
why isn't he just like coming out and saying that never happened?
Exactly. It's, the silence is deafening, actually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if it didn't happen, he would be on the pod right now with us,
now,
defending himself.
Yeah. From these ridiculous allegations.
So RFK Jr., you like to be a part of the pod to put these claims to rest for good.
Yeah. I would definitely have RFK Jr. on the pod. I was going to have some rando from Twitter on the pod. I'm going to reach out to that guy. I think that would be funny.
Which one? I've been dropping a lot of randos from Twitter. I feel like when you talk about content for the pod, my timeline's got some good ones on there. Like
your timeline does, dude. And as far as guests, anybody with a Roman statue profile picture or something from like the 50s, because those guys, and we would have to pitch it to him like, maybe we'd change the name of the show or something, so have him on, pretend we're like rational actors with his train of thought.
Right, exactly. So he'll feel at home in the brainworms community.
Yeah.
2 things here. Number one, did you guys see that I believe it was Japan just unveiled the first 6G tower?
Yeah.
That just went operational. Imagine how that's gonna go triple platinum on QAnon Twitter when one of those hits fucking America.
I can't wait for the middle-aged white moms who are freaking out.
I hope if I was in charge of any type of construction project for a 6G tower, I would refuse to do less than 3 at a time.
It was 6.
Yeah. Every single contract would be 3 at a time just to drive these people nuts. It would be the funniest thing ever.
If you put them all on a map, it'd have to be in a triangle.
Yeah. You build them, you swoop them into a pentagram somehow.
Exactly.
Yeah. These people would lose their fucking shit. It would be the best thing ever.
I saw that and I was like, it's like for a moment, you're like, man, human innovation. Like, look at us. We're still doing it, right? And on the other hand, you're like, oh, I can't wait till somebody comes to some poor retail agent at a phone store and is like, do you have any of those non-6G phones?
Right.
Kathy Kelly said allegedly that
yeah, I need a non-6G phone because my husband got a 6G phone and it turned him gay. I caught him getting fucked by a man.
Yeah.
And he blamed it on the 6G.
The only app he had on that 6G phone was Grindr.
It was the only 6G compatible app, and the G stood for gay.
Yes. It made him 6 times more gay than he'd ever been.
Which that reminds me, I saw a video today of people allegedly catching a big movie producer in the act of having dinner with a 15-year-old who was the guy's daughter. And he showed up to see who she was with. And it was this 70-year-old movie producer. And he's like, on the dating app, she said 23. And you can see the girl. She's clearly not 23.
Dude.
And I almost feel like it's a Chris Hansen setup. He made, the dad showed up quick.
Yeah.
Before the food got to the table.
So
it seems like a setup.
Fishing.
He used his own daughter as bait, which ballsy.
Dad's rock.
Mean,
Dad's rock moment.
What's good to do to your daughter? Put her in this compromising situation with an adult who wants to do horrible things to her.
Yeah.
What a good dad.
That's awesome.
That's how you.
Yeah,
that's how.
that.
When we talk about actionable items and really having some skin in the game to crack down on Hollywood elite pedophilia, put your own fucking daughter out there.
What have you guys been doing for the struggle?
Are you using your daughter as bait? Like, but my favorite was this dude's defense was like, I was just having pizza, man. Just having pizza.
Yeah.
Like, we're just out to dinner having pizza.
What's wrong with having pizza with a 15-year-old girl?
That was also like the best part of like the actual To Catch a Predator show when it was on, where you'd have the guy and he'd have like a large pizza and a box of condoms, and he'd be like, "What? We're just having some dinner."
Yeah, I was just gonna make some balloon animals.
Yeah. You're trying to tell me, you're trying to look me in the eyes and tell me you don't always roll around with 2 Little Caesars and a 12-pack of Magnum condoms in your car? Come on, dude. That's my daily driver.
Right, exactly. That's my everyday carry.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's my EDC. Check it out on the subreddit, the Everyday Carry subreddit.
9mm SIG, a pocket knife, and a box of Magnums.
Hell yeah, dude.
Oh my God. That's one though that I'm surprised not enough people know how that show even ended. It's almost like becoming a conspiracy on the surface level.
Oh yeah, didn't he get stabbed or some shit?
No, one of the dudes killed himself, right?
That happened, and then the final one that they never aired, it was like a U.S. either congressman or representative of some sort or governor, and they ended up stopping the show there because the guy made a big thing, and they were like, "We want to air it," and they wouldn't let him, and they ended the show.
I didn't hear about
they were trying to get like FBI to investigate it more and stuff, and the FBI wouldn't and shit like that, and they just stopped the show. Dude. And it's like, more people should probably know that that's how the show ended. Not because Chris Hansen was done catching them, like he got them all, like Ash. No, he got silenced by like elected officials, which is insane.
Pedodex is crazy.
Like, he was trying to catch them all, man.
The Pedodex, like scrolling through your Pedodex and listening to all the different sounds they make. Oh, that one is so bad. That's probably not going to make the recording cut because if that
doesn't make it, I'm done.
All right,
that's gotta live because that was good. That's exactly
no one has to know who made the sound.
Oh, here's Charlie in my Pedodex. What sound does he make? Oh, that's just fucking horrible.
Here's James in my Pedodex. What? It's just pizza and condoms. What's the
matter? I wear a backpack everywhere I go filled with these items. Just some wine coolers and pizza.
Bro, did y'all ever see that that one, like it's one of those amateur To Catch a Predator type deals where they just like, you know, they like video record themselves like almost getting killed by a pedophile, and
what?
they roll up
wild content.
You've never seen these? They're like these amateurs that are like, you know,
there's
like
so many YouTubers doing that.
Like pedo patroller. Yeah, and they like go. It's like an amateur dog, the bounty hunter, but they're like setting up their own traps for pedophiles. And there's one where they roll up on this dude who's in a Toronto Raptors themed, like one person little mini smart car that's like not even road capable. Like it can only drive on the sidewalks. And it turns out like the guy has like too many DUIs and a suspended license. So he has to drive around in this little cart. It's the funniest shit ever to see him like try to evade the pedo hunter guys in this little thing. Cause they're just like walking next to him like, hey dude, like you can't just drive away. You're going 5 miles an hour. You can't just drive away.
He's in a purple and red painted, like Little Tykes Mercedes. Like
it basically is.
Pedal car.
I gotta send it to you.
That's so fucking funny.
Jeez. But I mean, as much as I want to see all of the pedos get taken down, I feel like people gotta think about safety too. Of like, you know that a lot of serial killers are also like pedophiles. Like, you're putting yourself in a shit ton of danger, and I hope they're being safe because that shit.
I think a lot of people feel as though that like having a camera on them will keep them safer than they actually would be in a situation. because it's like I could fully imagine like one of these. That is,
I sent you the image of what that
insane.
dude was rolling in. You should check that, Paul, in the group.
That is insane. I would have to imagine that if, like, if
hold on, real quick. I just gotta say,
because I just gotta say, crazy.
Well, this will give you a moment to rethink if you want to, but like, this is a bad joke, but the only reason, here's the issue, right? The only reason this dude is going after, like a 12-year-old girl is that's all that's going to fit in his little Toronto Raptors vehicle.
Jesus Christ.
It's just, we need to get this guy a car. And then
he's not a creep. He just understands logistics.
Yeah, it's a physics problem, folks.
Oh no!
All right, sorry. What kind of crazy shit were you about to say?
Modern problems require modern solutions.
Exactly.
What I was going to say was, I imagine that for your hypothetical pedophile, right? Like, if you ran down on somebody with like a camera and they were like mid, like trying to pick up a child, then like I imagine probably there's got to be some of them who feel like they have nothing to lose at that standpoint.
Right. So you got to fight back.
So popping your ass for pulling up on them with a camera, to me, does not seem out of the question for them.
Yeah, because their other choice is going to jail as a sex
and especially because a lot of them, well, I won't say a lot, I don't know the statistics here, but allegedly a lot of them
just the ones you talk to,
allegedly are like armed, right, for these scenarios. You probably to further intimidate the child that they're about to try to fuck. So it's like you're like really playing a risky game here, I feel like.
Yeah, that's not for me. I'm not going to be going solo pedophile hunting. That's for sure.
Exactly.
No, not again.
Not again.
Not for the first time ever.
Speaking of pedophiles, Kendall, do you want to get us up to date on the latest like Drake response? Was there another Drake response? Or
I knew as soon as I heard pedophile in Toronto, I was like, oh, we're getting a Drake segue here.
Yeah.
I hear it already.
We had no other choice.
Someone from Kendrick's camp should have called you for some of these responses. All right.
Kendrick Lamar is paying for this episode of the podcast. So real quick while we break for sponsors. So, folks, today's episode is sponsored by Kendrick Lamar.
Please go stream Not Like Us on your local DSPs. So I'm going to say a few things, and then I'm going to let Craig get off into whatever tangent he wants to get off of, and I will not make any attempt to refute any claims he may make here. I'm just going to let him cook, because this is as I was telling Paul off air, that I'm taking Craig's stance on this issue, that the same tactic he uses about China, I'm going to use about Drake moving forward. Yeah. Where if I don't feel as though
because one of those entities has delivered unbelievable gains to the working class, and then the other one raped children. So I can see why you want to do that. I'm just
sure. So because of that, you have to pass my Aubrey Graham purity test before I'm allowed to get into deep dive here. But for the viewers, after, was that Friday? I think, I don't remember that. No new music is dropped.
Okay.
There is Drake lost the beef. That's fine. We can.
Is that confirmed? Like, that's even from the Drake community, they're saying.
I mean, what's he gonna say now?
I think anybody who doesn't think that it's kind of over at this point is grasping. It's cope. It's really cope at this point.
Wow, this is coming from a strong Drake fan.
For full disclosure, like, chat, I am a bona fide Drake stan. That's the case. But
he's a drizzler.
I'm
Jesus.
That's funny. We prefer Aubrey's Angels. Thank you.
Oh my
God. Goddamn.
So from that standpoint, like, the beef's lost. You can't really like beat somebody calling you a pedophile over a catchy DJ Mustard beat. Like that kind of cooks the whole thing at that point.
Yeah.
I will say that overall, there's two points I want to make here. One of these is going to be kind of relevant, one won't be. But the first point I want to make is that going into this was a situation where Drake was never going to win this beef, and it should not have happened in the first place. He needed to. This is something that I think when we talk about actual criticism of him, I do think he has an ego issue, and I think his ego told him that he would be able to move in this situation a way that he was not actually going to be allowed to, and I don't think he learned enough lessons from the Pusha T situation. So I think that already, like as soon as this whole thing popped off, he should have just let it go. That's what I would have done. I would have let it go, but that's neither here nor there.
Plus,
the second thing is that
rapid fire though, back and forth, like it takes a lot for him to rehearse what the writers.
Yeah, I know what other
for
people
him.
are written for him.
Yeah,
thank you,
because he's an amazing performer, but he doesn't really write. He's just good at performing.
The second part of this, and I think that even what you're joking or mentioning is part of it, right? I think that even just the perception of how his creative process is, whatever that may be, he was cooked going into it. He was fucked in this situation. You're not going to be like the chosen one of the rap game in like a rap beef when people already say that you're not a rapper. So you're like you right. there was no like even if I said this to Paul too, even if we hypothetically say that like Drake was smoking him song by song, like every Kendrick song was bad and it was like mixed terribly in every situation,
the mixes were pretty rough.
People were still going to say to Drake, well, that's Kendrick Lamar, so you're fucked, buddy. Get out of here, right? Yeah. So that's one thing. The second thing is that I think that this is why I'm particularly uninterested at this point. It's like now we've gotten to a point where this whole thing has gotten to a place where it really didn't need to be for like rap beef that I think started at like a who's number one type of thing. I don't particularly buy anything that anyone's saying about each other, and I think the way that the fan bases have behaved on social media is worse.
Yeah.
So I think that this whole thing has gotten kind of gross, and I'm hoping that Drake takes his L maybe not humbly. I'm sure he's quite upset about it, but you take that L and you just like try to move on at this point. I don't really want to sit through another 2-week cycle of like back and forth diss songs. You guys have already said so much shit about each other that it's kind of like I think that one thing that I was saying after, I want to say it was 616 in LA, maybe Meet the Grams, I don't know, but whenever like some of the more darker shit was getting said about each other, I was like, all right, now we've gotten past the point where we can't just like piece it up anymore, right? Like, like Drake and Meek, when that happened in 2015 or 2016 or whatever, right? Like that was like, oh, you don't write your raps. And then Drake was like, oh, well, like you're like the fucking girl in your relationship because Nicki's more famous than you. We can get back from that. That's the thing that we can like repair our relationship or whatever. And that did happen, right? But I don't think that this is a situation where I ever could see those two sitting down like amicably with each other at any point. Just because of the allegations levied at each other within this rap beef.
Which honestly, and I kind of wouldn't be surprised if Drake did that shit. Like I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Didn't it culminate in like, I don't know if it was related or not, but like somebody just got shot the other day, and
so
that's like too much.
As far as that shooting goes,
whether it's related or not, it feels like an escalation.
All of that seems to be related to the overall like Drake beefing with a bunch of people at once, but not specifically to Kendrick Lamar. That seems to be like a separate issue he was having with The Weeknd and The Weeknd's people. In like an inner Toronto type of problem.
Either way, like
I agree with you though. After I saw that report, I'm like, guys, we are really out of the realm now. Here.
That's probably just.
I love y'all, but I'm not gonna let either of you go out like Tupac or Biggie.
And I think
they're just not there.
Have we not learned from that?
A lot of people have made the comparison to the Nas and Jay-Z situation, and how things that they said about each other, and like years later they were able to like piece that up, and they seem to be in like a good place now. But I definitely think that if you go back and listen to Ether and Takeover and Super Ugly and these other songs that were released, there is a magnitudes of difference between the things that Jay-Z and Nas were saying about each other versus the things that Kendrick Lamar and Drake were saying about each other. And for that reason why, I basically said, like, I was kind of like saying, like, as soon as like we get to that point, we can't go back anymore, because there's certain things that get attached to people's names that you don't really get to like live down, especially if you're like the person who made that assertion in the first place. So
right. So you want my take on everything? It's really not that deep.
Drake's a pedophile. Kendrick won.
No.
Pack watch R.I.P. Bozo.
that's always funny. So every time Pack watch is mentioned, I gotta think about that, and it makes me smile. No, but I don't really. Obviously, I'm not super involved in a lot of rap beefs. But I do just want to point out that I think it's weird. There was some model. There's like a lot of weird things about Drake that I find off-putting. But like this thing about him, like there's some model that he was kind of following, and like the week she turned 18 or the month she turned 18 or something, they immediately start dating, and he had been like already hanging out with her for years. I find it just weird. Like you're a very, very well-known, reputable rapper, artist, millionaire, and like the way that you choose to spend your time is a lot of these like high school aged events. I just find it weird and off-putting.
Yeah, that's weird.
Whether there's fire there, I don't think anything has been presented to say that is the case, but I just find it off-putting and weird, and that makes me just not like the guy. That's it.
Maybe
that's my
he
whole
was
take.
just having pizza.
And right,
nothing wrong with just having pizza, man. He's just having pizza.
I think that to in those situations, I can agree with you that I think that when we take those incidents, it does paint a picture that is very easily like, oh no, buddy, something seems a little off here, right?
Right.
Like,
it's very Dan Schneidery before the accusations, any accusations came out. There was always like that weird like vibe, like what's going
I think that,
on
and I think that the you can't be mad at people. I don't hold it against anyone who's like, nah, man, Drake's fucking creepy, I'm not rocking. I completely understand that. I'm completely like, that's not.
He hasn't done himself any favors in that.
Yeah, exactly.
So
he hasn't
can't blame people.
He can't you can't blame people for analyzing situations you put yourself in.
Correct.
I will say that, and not to say that you didn't, Craig, or anybody else hasn't, but I think that from a fan standpoint, I think that if you do not bother to look into anything,
yeah, you're describing me. That's fine. I completely agree. I didn't look very deep.
Then you don't really like. You don't need to jump out on a side if you're just going to be like, especially like there's no reason to take a really strong stance here if you're not going to look into anything, right? But I think the ultimate thing here again is that like, I'm not even gonna I'm not gonna pull a Macklemore here and try to moral grandstand on rapper beef, right? Like that's like not what's gonna happen. But I will say
for the tiny little line he threw.
Yeah, because he's a fucking dork. Can't stand the guy.
An otherwise awesome protest song. It's
I didn't even I believe you. I think the crux of it here is that, and I think that we all kind of sometimes fall into this, and I think that it's like a very human thing. You have to be very careful about whatever moral judgments you want to put on the people who you do not know personally. I think that society in the social media age has a real issue with parasocial relationships, and I think that the strength of these parasocial relationships have caused a lot of people to act incredibly out of character for situations that don't have anything to do with them. So everybody, like, please take a breath. Get your memes off. The shit's like, some of it's kind of funny. Not Like Us is a very good song, and I'm not gonna like take that away from.
Is that the one with the A minor line?
Yeah, that's the one with the A minor line. Yeah,
but it's also like just a good song.
Yeah, like it's a good song. Like
Like,
even if you took Drake's name out of it and Kendrick just released that song as like a standalone song, it would probably have a similar effect that it has right now. It's just a good song.
yeah, that was the
Uh,
one out of all of them I thought like, oh, if this beat and like the way he's rapping to it,
yeah,
like if he did it with other lyrics, it would still be a fantastic song. That was like the
exactly.
better
I
of
think it
all
was
of them.
something that is kind of speaking more towards the like the away from the beef, just like the analyzing the artist thing here. I think it's a song that showed something about Kendrick that a lot of people, including myself, don't give him credit for, which is the ability to make a song that someone will listen to more than once. I
Yeah,
think that was a really good song and kind of I think Kendrick did a really good job of showing his range here, right? Like I think there's like a lot of tonal differences between
yeah.
like that all the way up to not like us, and I think that he did it was a really good showcase for him.
And
Um,
even just Not Like Us, like how it starts to the end, it's musically just a
yeah,
very
it's
good
just a
song.
musically
Like
good song,
a
and I
lot of ups
really
and
like
downs, contrast, like
exactly.
it's very
I
good.
probably now me personally, due to my my biases, I won't be personally running that one back too much, but I'm not mad at anybody who does. um, but I think that ultimately, everybody I would like for everybody to kind of get back to normal because shit's getting real nasty on the timeline. And I don't think that I think this is something that when you have like social media with such a vested interest in everything, now you have people digging out like just whatever and grasping for whatever they can find about both guys. And I just think that like number one, I think this situation went way too far. But even if like that's kind of what it had to be, I think everybody like I think if the artists at this point are kind of like done with it, then it'd be nice for the people. Like the artists are done. Kendrick won the popular vote and the electoral college. Like that's fine, right? Right. Let's all everybody like get back to arguing about like should women pay half the rent or whatever you guys usually argue about on the
Jesus.
internet.
Yeah, the
Or
woman bear thing. Kendall is significantly younger than me, a little bit younger than Paul, and so there's like that difference in age group, and I think that kind of expresses itself strangely when we talk about things that like shaped my political life compared to things that shaped Kendall's political life, especially when it comes to like the Iraq War in that period of time in American history before 9/11. You know, like off air, I kind of briefly talked to Kendall about the fact that I specifically remember like a pre 9/11 America and an after 9/11 America, and how he felt about that and like what his experience was, and it's completely different, you know.
well,
And we brought this up on our last episode too
how old
when
would
we
Kendall have been when that happened?
yeah, what
I
were you
was
like 4?
4 for
Yeah.
when 9/11
Okay, so
happened.
that you don't have a crazy memory of before that. Because
I do remember specifically my mom taking me home from school. That's the only thing that I
yeah,
remember. I don't really know what was going on or anything like that. I just know that she like came and got me. It was kind of weird that it was as early as it was, and like I
Yeah.
went home for the day. That's all I remember.
Because
I was sent, we walked over because I was at a private school at the time. We walked over to the church and sat and prayed until our parents got there. And like that was just so weird to me already of like why is everything stopping in the middle of school? And seeing how the whole country changed after that in like the years where I'm like kind of figuring out life in school, it was for me it was like dramatic, and it made me I was just old enough to think like, oh yeah, we got to do whatever we can to protect ourselves and like fall into that whole thing.
right. Yeah, it's weird because on the last episode that we talked about this a little bit when we went into a tangent about Iraq, because like for Paul, like I think this is where what I wanted to really kind of dig in, Kendall, for you is like I remember the Iraq War being very, very popular because of like the way everything seemed to fundamentally shift in the psyche because of 9/11. I remember how unbelievably popular the Iraq War was. for a long time, and then it like slowly like molasses switching to be like this thing that everybody universally accepts as a mistake, except for Joe Lieberman apparently. But whatever, that's another story.
Yeah.
But like that's not like your feeling of the Iraq War, right? Like yours is just like, this is an unpopular war.
Yeah.
Or am I mistaken in that?
No, so I think that like, so again, like to give reference, I was 4 when 9/11 actually took place. So and this kind of goes back to the John Stewart conversation. Now I'm somebody who did watch like a little bit of like political stuff when I was younger, right? Like I watched The Daily Show, I watched whatever the fuck the other dude was doing, the like
Stephen Colbert.
the Colbert Report. I used to watch the Colbert Report.
Yeah.
And things like that. So by the time I get to be like old enough to start having like conversations about it, I think that the general opinion of it and on the scope of it, everything that happened had already pretty soured.
Yeah.
Already. And also like and on top of that, I also don't have like the nostalgia for pre 9/11 America because I wasn't really a part of America before 9/11. So it doesn't like so like I don't have like a man back in 96 it was like this and like, oh my god, like blah blah blah. Like that's like not my stance on it. I think that at my like for me, especially like the first like real major political moment of my life that like really registered was Obama getting elected. And I think that the general opinion was like George Bush is an idiot. We're in a war where a lot of people are dying and we don't want to be in that war anymore. Obama's saying that he's going to get us out, right? Like this, like we're going to find a way to get out of that area. And ultimately like there's no sense in pride in it because like people my age didn't have like the fervor built up of like having experienced the actual event of 9/11 at like a time where you're like sentient really. Right. So I didn't feel some level of like patriotism or some necessary need for revenge about it because all I hear is like the whole weapons of mass destruction thing, that kind of didn't pan out. How many U.S. soldiers died? How many Iraqi civilians died? Well, this isn't looking very good. We should probably find a way to like wrap this up here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that from that standpoint, it just wasn't like I've personally, I can't think of anybody that I know personally who has like a glowing review of the way the US handled Iraq. But I think that people who are probably a little closer to your edge, Craig, there's probably more people who are on the lines of like, yeah, you know, we could have did it better, but overall, like we did what we needed to do. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that anybody in my age, especially younger, feels that way about that situation because we didn't have like a strong emotional tie to the thing happening in the first place. Right. It was just something that like we were.
So you're just
like,
throwing it all in the trash.
Yeah, like we just like it was like this whole thing is like I don't know, like obviously like you know I wasn't alive in like the 70s or anything where like anti-war protests were like at like fever pitch and things like that, and that was like really like the talk of the town. But I do think that like people my age and younger have a very heavy like anti-war sentiment unless they're online trolling. Like I think that like generally like the majority of the population kind of looks at it as like you'll have some people who will harp on like America being the world police, right? And saying that like we need to stop being the world police and like letting countries handle their shit on their own. And obviously like we know that that's a little bit more complicated than it sounds because like strategic interests and things like that and financial interests and stuff like that. So so Chad, you can't see him, but Craig's jerking the air off. But
end all war now.
Right. And that's like, but I think that's kind of where a lot of people from my age range feel is that like the justification of war is very I think a lot of it I think it's very similar to kind of like the Ukraine Russia situation right now, right? Or like even when it first was kicking off. Everybody was like, I don't really know about this. All I know is that we should not be getting actively involved in that, right?
Right. That's
like
a good first instinct to have, I will say.
Like, why the fuck would we have anything to do with that?
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like your generation having that instinct, like, that makes my dick hard, to be honest.
Like, I think really that, like, that's like good. Generally like the sentiment is like I don't think that like the war hawking of yesteryear is as like effective today as it used to be.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that necessarily is just like, I don't know what the cause of that is. They probably leave that up to the scholars to figure that one out. But I do think that like now, like I think that everybody's like, yo, like why war where we can like stream on Twitch, bro? Like,
right.
Like fuck are we fighting for? I can go on Kick and like make $1 million. Like, what are we talking about?
Right. There's that, and I also think that there is a case for like deteriorating material conditions, like, right, because like Gen Z is going to be, you know, the millennial generation was the lowest home ownership of any generation, you know, for its age group. And then like for Gen Z, it's going to be worse. And for Gen Alpha, it's going to be worse. And like, if we look at like the overall productivity and GDP, it's accelerating upwards in the United States, yet, you know, the average salary is staying rather stagnant or in some cases dropping. And then you have the overall wealth inequality just at a staggering rate, where our Gini coefficient for wealth inequality is like higher than it's ever been. It's like, I think 6 months or a year ago, it passed the inequality levels of 17, or I'm sorry, I don't remember the year. Whenever the French Revolution took place. I'm totally blanking on that right now. So like, when you have when you have all those like deteriorating material conditions, it's a lot harder to like look at the pie of what we're doing as a country and be like, I think we have enough in this budget to spend on war. You know, like when you look around and you're like, oh, nobody can afford as much as their parents could, and their parents couldn't afford as much as their parents could. Like, what are we doing spending all this money on war? I feel like that's a part of it, even if it's subconscious for a lot of people, you know.
And because our age, we didn't really see those numbers as dramatically either. Like, that wasn't something
crazy now.
Like, we didn't know, oh, there's billions and billions and billions going to this. Like,
right.
We weren't aware of that, where this generation has more of an opportunity to be aware. Like, I mean, yeah, I remember when the internet became more and more popular, and maybe we started to get more, but like, I didn't get to grow up with it right away. Of any information I want is readily available. But it's just wild to think, because for me, like, that whole situation was crazy defining in a way of like, I fell for it. I was very young, but when it started, but then like, I got to go through those steps of like, okay, Afghanistan, I get it. We got to get the people who attacked us. You know, you fall for that easily because you're scared. Like, and then all of a sudden we're starting to be like, this is weird. We're heading to Iraq now. We're going to do all this. And I got to watch it as like my trust in the government just kept going down and down and down. And I'm like, wait, what have we been doing this whole fucking time?
Right.
Where I feel like it might have been easier to just grow up a few years later and just know as soon as I was aware enough, like, oh yeah, this is all bullshit. Because that was hard to be like cheering for Bush and then getting to like the first time I can vote. And it was Obama and who was that? Mitt Romney? Is that who was running against Obama after Bush?
Yes. Yeah.
But like, I got there and I remember not being able to tell my family I was not about to vote Republican for my first election because I saw what had just happened. Like, for me, that was defining and like changed everything. And I kind of went full anarchy after that.
Yeah.
Just reading anarchist books. And yeah, I just gave up on it because I was like, this whole system's a joke. Because then we went through the Obama years and he let us all down too. And I'm like, all right, well, there's nothing left.
Right.
I think that one other part of this as well is I think that a lot of the honorifics that were attached to military service historically do not exist culturally to the same prominence that it used to. Like now, and I think it speaks to, like, you'll see a lot of like military organizations talk about how they're struggling in recruitment now. I think that the situation is that a lot of people don't associate being in the military with some great honor anymore. Like a lot of the times when I hear like even active duty service people talk about it, it's usually like not like, oh, I'm really sick. I'm really like fucking excited to be serving my country. It's like, oh, it's a means to an end because if I do X amount of time, I get X amount of benefits for it.
Yep.
So really, I'm just like trying to get through X amount of time so I can get to like these benefits. And hopefully I don't get like deployed somewhere fucked up between now and then. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, well, I think that for you guys, right? Like kind of what Paul was mentioning, right? Like if you're like a 17-year-old kid and like someone flies 2 planes into 2 of your buildings and everybody is like, oh, we're fucking under attack, you're gonna feel maybe a sense of duty and honor around like defending your homeland, right? Like I think about a guy like Pat Tillman who was having like a relatively successful football career and was like, nah, fuck that. There's like bigger things going on, and then he ends up like that situation ends up happening, right? And it's
Kendal,
like,
I just cannot believe we've gone over an hour in this podcast right now, and you're the first person to bring up like a conspiracy theory right now.
Right.
All right, you're kind of nudge, wink, at the chatters to be like,
yeah,
Google Pat Tillman.
You know
Google
that
Pat
whole
Tillman,
thing.
that whole thing, and see what comes up.
Yeah, see how that worked out.
Right. Yeah. Google Pat Tillman, do some reading on that one. But
yes,
like we don't like. I think that like, and I speak for somebody who a very close friend of mine like is actively in the military currently, and I know more people than that, right?
Oh wait, what we can cut this part out, but what was his first name?
I'm not giving you that.
Yeah, I fucked his wife. I fucked her first, actually. No, I'm just kidding. We'll cut
family member in active duty right now.
Yeah,
shit I hear from him is that same stuff of like,
I fucked his
man,
girl
I'm gonna have my if he has but his whole thing is like, yeah, my school's all paid for. I'm gonna have a degree when I get out of here. Amazing benefits. He's like, I can't wait till this is over.
Yeah, like it's not like a pride and patriotism thing. It's like, oh, this is a job, and after I put enough time in my job, I get to be done with my job, and I can go do other things. And it's like, and I think that like that sentiment, like even when you look at like in the social media age, right, where like now, like when you see memes about military recruitment, they're like, it's like a trade-off of you get like a used Hellcat versus like but you got to go shoot some brown people in the desert for a while, right?
Yeah.
Like
also, isn't it weird that like a year before all that started is when the original Counter-Strike came out, and all of us in our generation were like, yep, it's only counter-terrorists versus terrorists all the time.
Exactly, right.
And like we grew up with that, and then seeing this happen, and we're like, well, yeah, of course, like we gotta go take care of these people who just want to kill America. Like, it was an easy thing to fall into at that time because
I just don't think that sentiment exists with people. Like, so like I'm technically like an old Gen Zer, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
you're like borderline.
I'm like I think I missed millennial by like 2 years or something like that.
I'm like right in the middle of millennial.
But like the that sentiment just does not exist, I think, with people in my age range and below, like where we're like, yeah, man, like I want to go be in the fucking army, like,
which I think that's amazing, because I think at a certain point, like, we do kind of have to realize we can travel around the globe, all interact with each other. We kind of have to do better if we want the world to be better. Like, it's literally just that. Like, we have all this amazing shit, and I think we're realizing, like, what are we doing still, like, fighting over stupid things when, like, we could pretty much make a world utopia if we just chose to. Like, we have enough resources, enough people, and like, we could do amazing things. And I think that's something too, is like your generation is seeing that. Like, we got all this wealth, all these people with all this money, huge corporations, like, and we're still like draining people of all their energy and time and money, and like everyone's miserable still. Like, how?
Right.
I think that leans into like what Craig was talking about, where like a lot of like there is a due to the material conditions and the way things have changed, like materially for people my age and lower, and also like what our outlook is and how fucking bleak it looks kind of from all angles, that it
Right.
really kind of makes it hard to sell somebody like you're gonna go like do 5 to 10 years of like miserableness for like some nebulous American dream idea where like bro, you can't even buy a fucking house. So it's like, what are we
Right.
talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
People have a hard time buying a car.
Right.
Like, let alone a house.
That's the crazy part to me about like this late state, and I'm sorry, I know I'm going to say some
late
things that
stage
Kendall probably
capitalism.
doesn't
Let's
agree
go.
with here, but like that's the crazy part for me about living in like a late stage capitalist society, is that the people that should know what's going on, like the people that are elite in our society, that should like be able to actually analyze deterioration of material conditions and how that's like a destabilizing force, they don't either know or care. But like that never ends well for them. So like what are you thinking, guys? Like what's going on here, you know?
Bold of you to assume they think.
I know, it's strange.
Well, and I think
This
we're also at a point where anyone with money in this country has grown up generation after generation in wealth. Not like, oh, I came from nothing and became a millionaire. Most of these people with that much wealth, they don't know anything other than being catered to and pampered and told their whole life, like, you're grooming for this high position somewhere. Like, they're so disconnected from generations of it now, not just, oh, I one person grew up with money. It's like their great grandpa was a billionaire too, or millionaire. Like, so
yeah.
they're so out of touch with the reality, they might not even believe how bad things really are because they've never seen it. I know people who are middle class who are that way, where they're like, no way is there that much poverty or that much homeless people. Well, yeah, you live in the suburbs and don't travel out of it, so you
Yeah.
just don't see it. Like, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist just because you don't see it.
Well, I think
So
that
no, go ahead, Kendall.
sorry, I think that a lot of people really do fundamentally hold on to that bootstraps theory of economic advancement in the country and really fundamentally still believe that like they're just like one or two changes of luck or good fortune from being in whatever like desired class they want to be in. They
Yeah.
just need to like, and for the people who
They
are in
just need
that
to hop on
class,
the next big thing.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
it's right around
And
the
then I'll have
corner.
a speedboat too.
yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
and then the people who are in that class um have a, because I think so. Here's what I think, that something that um I think this I think this is kind of a thing that affects the way we talk with anybody about anything that we disagree with them on, is that I think that when you are trying to tell somebody that they did not earn or deserve something that they believe they earned or deserved, you're always going to lose them in that conversation, right?
Yeah.
So I think that like to take it out of the capital conversation, but to make it like a race conversation, right? For I know the black guy wants to make it a race thing. I got it. But
No, that's all right, man. I'm intersectional. Let's hear it.
Shalom, my DEI.
They're all
my
connected.
DEIs in the chat.
They're all connected.
I think that one thing that will always hamper dialogue around race relations in this country and systemic racism is that like when you're trying to tell like who do you need to convince, right? You're not trying to convince like upper middle class educated white people because they probably agree with you for whatever reason or not. They agree with you, right? So who are you trying to reach? You're trying to reach like the Trumpers, like the Bible Belt, like that crowd, right? But you start going around and the first thing you want to parade to them is like, oh, by virtue of like your skin color, you're like privileged and you're this and that, and you have all these things, you completely lost them in the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Because you didn't frame it in a way to where what you're trying to get them to understand, you immediately started blaming them for things that they did not feel like they have control over anyway. So now we can't have a conversation about how the immigration problem is directly tied to the way that large companies handle labor and the way that they pay
Yes.
for labor, right?
Yes.
What you told them was, oh, you're white, was so must be so fucking easy. That dude's on SSI. He's in a trailer park. He's not living the life he wants to live. So how the fuck you're going to tell him that he's privileged because of his skin color? He don't
And
want to
he
hear that
feels
shit.
the exact same way about you.
Yeah.
And
right.
and he's wrong, you know,
Yeah.
like he's the wrong one in the situation, but to him that doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
So
like, because that's not his reality.
Yeah.
So like there's been a million different organizers that have talked about this in the past, but like you got to meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
And like you're exactly right that you're never going to reach somebody like that by telling them how privileged they are, you know, to be living in a trailer on SSI in like the hills of Virginia. You know?
Exactly. Just in the same way that I think that you're never going to tell somebody or convince somebody of the issues of wealth inequality when they're like, oh, well, I fucking made this really cool pillow and everyone bought it. Like
I used to be a crackhead, and I threw some styrofoam into a pillowcase, and now I'm altering elections with how much money I'm spending.
Exactly. Now I send a lot of money to super PACs. All right.
Right.
So,
if you don't believe America is like fully captured by capitalism and an ideology inside and out, just like look at his entire life. like he did nothing of merit whatsoever except like be able to sell a pillow, and that's like enough to be like launched into the upper echelons of
now
our
people
society.
put him on TV to talk about current events.
Yep, exactly.
Most of the
it's
time,
completely insane.
All of his excitement for that pillow came from freebasing.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So, he'll sell you anything if it means more freebasing.
Right. Yes. So when you're dealing with people like that, right? Like, no, you don't. You like there is. I was thinking about this. Kind of goes back to something that you guys were talking about on the last episode, right? About like what Craig was saying about like the democratic centralism, and like we need, like, you get on code and then you get to the issue and then we could talk about the optics of it afterwards, so we have to like get to the issue, right?
Yes.
I think that in the conversations about race, I think in conversations about wealth, I think in conversations about gender inequality, we can't even get down to the issue first. Like, we can't even address the issue because we don't even know how to talk about the issue with people without immediately putting them in situations where they feel like they need to defend whatever they have going on in the first place, right? So it's like you have to allow, like you said, it's about meeting people where they are, right? Not everyone's gonna have read a million books about whatever issue you want them to talk about, but you can bring it to home, right?
I'm feeling personally attacked.
Yeah, that felt really hurtful.
That was no shade.
You know,
I just catching strays over here for having a library card.
Yeah, I grew up in a time where I was hearing, "Take a look, it's in a book." So
reading a rainbow,
and you know what? It was in a book. Everything I needed to learn was in a book.
Yeah, but like over half the country is illiterate.
I know. That's you're completely correct. And like, you know what one of like the bane of my existences has been over the past like 2 years has been like trying to talk to somebody about a fundamental aspect of Marxism, and then like them getting really interested in one little piece, and I'm like, oh, I know exactly what book to recommend for them. And then I like recommend a Marxist book, and they're like, yeah, I need a video. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I can find a video.
Like a personal attack.
No. But this is on me. This is actually on me, because or on the left. Actually, this is a critique of us. Is that like I go to search for a video for that because there should be an easy to watch video on that specific concept, and like it doesn't exist. And that's a failing on the left. You know, like we need to get better about this.
Well, I think
and
that
I know it's hard because
also-
we don't have the funding. Like
It
PragerU,
was
if you
also
search like
suppressed.
"Are gay people
PragerU is the
evil?"
devil, 100%.
Yeah, but if you search YouTube for like "Are gay people the devil?" like I guarantee you're gonna get a PragerU video about how bad gay people are for society, because they don't have to have a sustainable business model. They don't need to return on investment for their YouTube videos because they have billionaire capitalist donors that like keep them afloat. Like if you look, and you can just see that in the contracts that these people are handing out, right? Because like the Daily Wire was going to hand a $55 million contract to Steven Crowder, but like over a period of 3 years, like I'm sorry, his YouTube videos don't make that money. So they're just using donor money to spew this stuff out. The left doesn't have a mechanism for that because of the nature, like fundamentally, of what they are as an anti-capitalist group of people. It's difficult to get those funding mechanisms into high gear.
Well,
I would
we still have
say
half of our population is still like living with that Red Scare fear, and
For sure.
100%.
like communist books weren't available for years in this country. Like they were still hard to find when I was a teenager. Like I could only find like Chomsky type stuff, and that was at like weird bookstores, like where all the Wiccan stuff is.
Just
and
look at
all
our
that.
higher education too. Like
it wasn't easy to find that even if you wanted to.
Marxist economics is taught all around the world, and you know, in various forms depending on what country you're in. But you know, China has 1.3 billion people, and they're obviously teaching Marxism in school. So that's already a gigantic chunk of the world's population that are teaching it as a legitimate form of economics. Look at how many Marxist economics professors are actually in the United States. It's so few. You know, like there's an entire unstudied portion of how economics might actually work better for people that we just don't even teach in the United States. You know, I think we're far afield from my original question, but
well, I mean, I think it's all tangentially related, but I think that I think part of this as well, it's something that we've kind of talked about before, and kind of going to your point about the YouTube videos, right? Is that like, so for example, I asked you to off air, I was like, hey, can you guys send me some stuff to look at so I can kind of get a better grasp of like what you two have going on?
Nothing good out there, yeah.
Right. And you were, thank you for giving me the live example. The point I was about to make is that like I think that on the left, we're so hypercritical of everything that we create that it's like nothing, like everything gets served up with the caveat of like, well, this is like okay, or this is like 75% or blah blah blah, whatever the situation is, right?
Instead of cheerleading for the cause.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel as though that like there's one thing that said of like, yeah, you have to be critical because you have to get to like the root, blah 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 blah. But when you have like PragerU who will indiscriminately make a video about gay people being like bad for the economy because of birth rates and shit. Like it doesn't need to be sound,
right?
Right? The logic doesn't have to hold up. But I guarantee you, on one of those,
got to get it out there.
Yeah, as long as on one of those like Roman statue Twitter accounts, there's a 7-tweet thread about how fucking like eye-opening this video was and how like the left doesn't want you to see this shit. Like it, like they just like they get on task very easily.
Yes, right? It's very, like you said, it's and I've said this literally for decades since I ever understood the concept of democratic centralism. I was like, damn, that's what the Republicans do, like perfectly. And like conservatives do it, like you're saying, they do it perfectly. Like whatever the message is, no matter how ridiculous it is, or like how much it doesn't, like it ends up being attacked, it doesn't matter. They're just like lockstep, like, yep, that's it. This is it. They just cheerlead it. And the left doesn't do that. All right. So getting back into it, I think
no. I got one big thing to ask Kendal while we're still on the topic of race.
Okay. All right.
Because I don't know if you noticed, a new Cat Williams special came out.
No.
Did you watch that?
No, I did not.
Okay. Well, he has a joke in it, and I got to ask you if you stand by this. Okay. Where he says, if we finally just do reparations and every African American wakes up with like $1 million in his account, we'll let all white people say the N-word.
That's the Democrats' new Southern strategy, right?
And
there.
You know what? I bet you that would win over a bunch of white people. They'd be like, hell yeah, give it to them.
Okay. So the mistake Craig just made was that you assume they're not just saying it already. That's not. You can't offer people things they're already got.
That's true. That's, you know what? You got a point there.
Yeah,
Right.
fair. Killed the whole joke already.
Number two, see, the issue with that is the way things work for black people in this country is that if they gave every black person $1 million tomorrow, starting the next day, everything would cost at least $1,001,001.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you went that way.
That's so good.
like here, and the other thing too is like you want to see.
You're so correct. Too.
Like you want the new Nike Air Force, $1,001,001.
Dude, even cities with like really strict rent control, there would be a workaround instantaneously passed through every legislature that was like every black person's rent is going up by 348%.
Like
minimum.
You want to see wealth equality happen in this country? Let the black population all become fucking millionaires overnight. When I tell you this will be a socialist haven by the time the day's over.
100%. Dude, I think you're just making like the greatest case for like propping up black billionaires that I've ever heard in my life.
Like that's, and it's 100%. Like I love it conceptually. Cat is cooking sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes he's cooking. Right?
Yeah, sometimes right? For sure.
But that one is, it sounds really good in theory up until like, you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene gets a fucking hand on a bunch of black dudes having like being million. I will say when we talk like this is kind of bad to talk about my people this way, but the jewelry market would be insane. if you're all invested in gold currently.
Yeah. Is overnight. Oh God, now I'm gonna have to cut this.
Just bleep his name.
Yeah. Overnight, dude, is gonna be like, fuck yes.
Oh my God. Because listen, let me tell you about all the chains. All right.
You know what, dude? Like, I feel like that is a more real economy than like derivative trading. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I would rather, if there was some way to subsidize either people buying chains versus like it's on a ballot, you know, like people buying chains versus like subsidizing better tax plans for derivative traders, I'd be like, oh, we're going chains.
Yeah, it's time to ice a motherfucker out. Right?
Yeah, I want to. Every time I walk outside, I want to see some new variation. You know.
Someone's gonna blow their whole $1 million on a chain. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, they'll like live stream the unboxing or something and try to bring it back.
That's funny. But again, that's like when you talk about like the Southern strategy, right? It's like meeting people where they are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like now, I joke about like the white Southerners saying it already, but you're like, oh, I don't have to just be in my car anymore. I don't know, guys.
Yeah, it's feeling pretty good.
Right.
You know,
I've heard multiple black people talk about voting for Trump again because of stimulus checks. Imagine if Papa Biden drop the M in everybody's account tomorrow.
Dude, right? Right. It would literally lock the black vote to Democrats no matter what. Forever.
I was gonna say, like, you think we won't move off of Democrats now.
But that just like shows how much smarter the black electorate is than like your normal moderate white liberal. Is like they will just literally be like, yeah, no, if you're gonna better my material conditions, yeah, that's who I'm voting for. Like, that's it. And you can call it bribery or whatever on Fox News. I don't care, dude. My chain is banging.
Like, it spins, motherfucker. It spins.
Right. All right. That the one I hate to like go so far back, but you had mentioned earlier, and I feel like this is just like an interview of Kendal at this point. I'm sorry if you feel.
I feel like that's kind of all. But when you have a guest host, I feel like it's kind of
what we should be doing, right? You know,
So I was asking the hard hitting questions.
I just found it really interesting that you had said one of your defining political moments was Obama. Specifically because, like, for me, in my political journey, like the first Obama campaign was the first the first part of me being involved in something electorally. Like, I didn't have a lot going on, like, I don't want to get into specifics, but like fail son type stuff, and it was like I was able to donate and volunteer so much of my time to that campaign. And like the amount of work that I put in on both Obama campaigns was kind of a radicalizing thing for me, because of the fact that like he didn't deliver on those things that I was most concerned with. And so when I look back on Obama, I have a really, really seriously bad taste in my mouth about him. But since he was like a starting point for you politically, when you do a postmortem on Obama's legacy, like, what is that? If you could encapsulate that, like, what does that mean for you about, like, what do you think about Obama, basically?
So I think that there's two schools of thought here, right? There is the what does Obama mean culturally, and what does Obama mean politically, right?
Right.
So I'll touch on the political thing first because I think it's like a little bit more pertinent. But like obviously like now you know how you guys act on the internet. You bring up any fucking leader of any place, first thing we gotta start talking about is drone strikes, whatever bad shit they did.
Every war crime we can dig up.
Yeah, like whatever it is, right? So
because America bad,
right, exactly,
unironic,
and that's always the take, right? Is that like
chances are, if you can name them, we bought them.
Exactly, right. So it's like now mind you, again, Obama gets elected for the first time in 2008, and then he gets reelected in 2012. I'm not able to vote in my first election until 2016. Okay. So my first actual engagement with politics on an active level wasn't until 2016. Like I went to a Bernie rally once, and then the kind of everything kind of spiraled from there.
Did you get like a hand job in the parking lot though, or
no? Was that supposed to be a part of it?
What?
Yeah,
they didn't give you
no,
yeah.
What the fuck?
Did you not claim
that was like, yeah, dude,
yeah.
like 2016 politics was all about like
hand jobs in the parking lot.
Yeah, come on, dog.
Yeah. Okay, I missed that one. I must have been in the wrong line. But for Obama, like, in the sense that, like, from a political standpoint, like, being as like still pretty young, for as far as like things he accomplished. And so I think there was like, and this kind of bridges into the cultural thing, right? I think that a lot of people attached Obama to this idea of like the great black savior, right? That he was going to like fix and elevate the position of black people overall in the country to parity with white people. And I think that on one hand, I completely understand that from a cultural standpoint, because you gotta think about it, right? Like at that point in time, like he gets elected, I'm like 11 years old or whatever, right? Like the idea of a black dude named Barack ever being president of the country seems like a fucking foreign concept. All right. Like there's just no way.
So his middle name was Hussein.
Right. Like the whole thing seemed cooked no matter what, right? So like we're all just kind of reveling in the idea of like, oh shit, like we actually got like a black dude to be president. Like that's we got a Young Jeezy song, there's t-shirts. This is a great time, right?
Right.
4 years goes by. I know a lot of people say like a lot of stuff under Obama didn't really like nothing changed particularly. And I think that there's like obviously you're like when we talk about like his first term, a lot of that was like post economic crisis kind of presidency. And then getting into like his second term was kind of more so things that like are people more so attached to like him directly. But I think the other conversation becomes about like how much of whatever policy he was trying to get passed or whatever he was trying to do being stopped and derailed by the GOP. Either way, whatever like the makings are of like his accomplishments or failures as a president, I think that you're always going to have a hard time. Like I think there's people like you, Craig, who are more politically involved, more like like significantly more left-leaning people who are going to look at Obama's presidency, look at the things that he talked about doing and see how he didn't accomplish that and take that more personally than somebody like me in my age, or just somebody who's like Black and a part of like the culture, where we're just like, yo, like Obama, like you can chalk it up and maybe say Obama's like the biggest fucking terrible president ever, but we still got a Black president, and we never thought that would happen. So I think that I think for a lot of people, especially like in my community, it don't really matter. Like we can get into the nitty gritty about Obama, but at the end of the day, like Obama was president, and we got to like have a president at some point. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It is important representation, like which color they're painting the bombs.
Yeah, sure. Like
no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Bombs,
No.
There was a black fist on there.
I totally get it, dude. No, I really do. I really do understand that. Like, it is important overall for society, for every group like in that society to feel like at the very top there's a possibility of somebody like me being there, you know, whatever that top might be. And like it just so happens to be that like the top of our society, like I consider to be grotesque, you know. And so like that is what it is. Like Black, white, Asian, it doesn't matter. Like if you're the leader of this country, you're going to be involved in horrible shit that I'm going to critique, you know. But I totally understand and appreciate like people in the Black community being like, yeah, I'm not going to hold him to the same standard that you are, because there was something important for me there personally to be able to see like we can move up in society, and that's an important thing. Like psychically,
I'll put it to you this way. Like, I know that when you know you graduate high school and everyone gets your like superlatives, you get like the most likely to be on TV and blah blah blah, right? Like one of the superlatives that I got leaving high school was most likely to be president. Funny enough, and,
hell yeah.
And it's a much harder thing to fathom if Obama, and for the record, Chad, I have zero desire to ever be president. But
actually,
that's why you'll be good at it.
I'm sorry, he's being very humble right now. This entire episode is framed around the fact that this is going to be the announcement for
of my campaign,
of his candidacy for
Kendal 2032. I gotta be 35, right? So,
oh, that's right. Shit, goddamn, you're too young.
I think that so it's a much harder thing to fathom if Obama wasn't president. Like now, like I think that now when I see like younger Black politicians getting involved in politics, and obviously like, you know, we're kind of of the belief that the system eventually eats everyone, right? Like you end up becoming a part of it no matter what. But when I do see like young Black politicians doing things that I think that are meaningful and trying to create change in their communities, I do appreciate the fact that I can see like a path forward for them that like that did not really seem like even like funny enough, like I always kind of joke with people is that I was much more expecting to see a woman president before a Black dude. Like I never
100%.
Like I never thought, especially like we found like the dude with like the blackest name possible. He was just missing a Tyrone or a Daquan, and we'd have been like fucking out of there, right? The Black stocks would have been through the roof. Okay,
dude, it's so crazy that he literally had like the African and like the like converted to Islam afterward name all in one.
Exactly,
you know?
Right. And he won. And then also, I think another big part of it from a cultural standpoint is that, like, when it comes to interpersonal controversy, like, Obama didn't really have any outside of, like, his daughters were getting a little older, so they were, like, partying a little bit, and, like, that was, like...
He was just cool as fuck.
Yeah, like, Obama...
Like, that was his persona. It was just, like, I'm cool as fuck.
And it was, like, exactly what you would hope for, like, as, like, a young Black dude, and you had to pick, like, a guy to be, like, the first president to represent, like, your, like, group of people, because it's, like, Clarence Thomas, You know, like we don't like we don't want him. We don't want a Ben Carson. Like we don't want any of these fucking geezers, right? Like we want like somebody who's like feels like they're kind of like a part of what we have going on. And I think that, like you said, I think that ultimately Black people will never hold Obama to the same level of criticism that we would hold any other president, because it's like I get like it's when you have like a W, you can just lump him in with the rest of the old white dudes and be like, yeah, fuck him, right? But like Obama is like, hey, he wasn't great, but man, it was Obama though, you know?
Like, totally. And I mean, it's really just simple to just like it's an obstacle. Like, for a young Black politician that's like looking to get into politics, it's just like a signal that like, oh, maybe that's less of my skin color, my pigment of my skin is like less of an obstacle than it might have been in the past.
Right.
That's just like a objectively easy thing for somebody that is not super plugged in to just be like, oh, this is great. You know, boom, for sure. Easy, you know. Cool. Fair enough.
Plus, he gave us the original take on that whole rap battle beat.
That is true. He did pick Kendrick to win.
Yeah, don't you remember that? When he even said, like, oh, yeah, I put out the best album of the year, and I mean, Drake's a great performer. Yeah, there's legit an interview where they asked him.
Jesus Christ.
It was an interview with a YouTuber named Swoozy.
That's not real.
Like,
that's
that's a YouTuber
I remember this very
name
vividly,
if I've ever heard it. But I remember that, and I had to look it up because I could have swore I remembered him talking about Kendrick and Drake, and it was real.
A man named Swoozy is interviewing the president of the United
YouTube
States.
channel's name is Swoozy. I don't remember the guy's actual name.
Fucking
yeah,
I was going to say you probably encountered his content at some point, but you don't watch like YouTube the way that normal people watch YouTube.
I do not. No. I don't do most things the way those people do. All right, I think that's probably good enough for a cut, eh, boys?
We know you could've stayed home, just cried and cussed. Mail your guns go off if it's time to bust. Mail they tanks have time to rust. They got the armies turning bullets into gold. They got the hookers turning tricks into cold. And every time the police kicks in the dough, an angel gas breaks dips in the O. And even if a D-boy flips in my O, it ain't enough to buy shit anymore. Sleep in the doorway, piss on the floor. Look in the sky, wait for missiles to show. It's finna blow, cause they got the TV, we got the truth. They own the judges and we got the proof. We got hella people, they got helicopters. They got the bombs and we got the guillotine. We got the guillotine, you better run. We got the guillotine. We got the guillotine, you better run. We got the guillotine. We got the guillotine, you better run. We got the guillotine. We got the guillotine, you better run. Talk about it, I show. Be about it, I know. Talk about it, I show. Be about it, I know. I just spit the dope lines, I don't snort them. Tell the boss to call police to escort them. You don't ride out them lies, you just quote them.
Get offline, plug into this modem. No, you can't outvote them. The rules are still golden. On the jewels we holdin' if we guardin' our scrotum. If you press your ear to the turf that is stolen, you can hear the sound of limitations exploding. Please, sir, may we have another portion? We're children of the beast that dodge the abortion. Neck placed firm between the floor and the portion. When shut your shit down, don't call it extortion. Caution, we're coming for your head. So call the feds and get files to shred. Every textbook read said bring you the bread, but guess what? We got you instead.
We got the